I'm shocked that this has happened now and so soon. You know, I talk to a lot of people who are close to Twitter. I've talked to some of the founders at times, and all of them have been very publicly supportive of Dick Costolo as CEO. Dick Costolo has told me time and again that he and the board are aligned. He will be the CEO of this company. He feels that he has the support of Evan Williams and Jack Dorsey, who founded this company. And now we're hearing that Jack Dorsey is coming in as interim CEO. This is a guy who's currently running another multi-billion-dollar company, Square. You know, that said, there has been a lot of momentum behind investors who are just not happy with Twitter's performance. You and I were just talking about Chris Sacca a few minutes ago, who released an 8,500-word missive about what he thinks Twitter can do to be better. I asked him many, many times if he thinks that Dick Costolo should still be the CEO, and he was publicly, in that moment, supportive of Dick Costolo. He felt that Dick Costolo could get some of these things done that he's asking to be done. But the reality is 1 billion people have come to Twitter, have tried Twitter, and they haven't stuck around. This is a company that's suffering lagging user growth, lagging revenue. This is a company that so many people, including myself, think can be bigger than it already is. There's so much that goes on Twitter. Live tweets from basketball players in the middle of a game, you know, periscoping behind the scenes. But that kind of stuff is too difficult for regular people who don't understand that service to find. Twitter actually takes a lot of work, and these are some things that Dick Costolo hasn't been able to fix since he's been the CEO. There's been a lot of turnover, 5 product heads in 5 years. There was a lot of talk that it certainly seemed like Dick had assembled a team, the team that could finally execute on these things. He brought in Anthony Noto, the new CFO. He brought in and promoted a new product guy named Kevin Weil, and it certainly seemed like things were getting in order, but it doesn't seem like the board has confidence in him at this point.
And Emily, I don't obviously want you to speculate on what triggered this right now, but in your experience, who had been pushing for some kind of change at the top, and how quickly was that voice actually growing? Because Twitter is still affirming its a second quarter guidance. It's not like all of a sudden things have magically changed.
So first of all, Wall Street. Wall Street has been pretty hard on Dick Costolo. I mean, there have been people out there time and again saying that the CEO of Twitter should be fired. So there was a lot of pressure from the outside, people who were not within the company saying that this company can be more than it can be. I mean, over the years, there has been so much drama with regard to this company. Nick Bilton wrote an entire book on it, and you know, as far as I can tell, in many situations it seemed that the board has not necessarily been aligned. There have been a lot of people rotating into the board and rotating out of the board. There's a lot of bad blood on the floor, quite frankly, with how, you know, Evan Williams was the CEO, then Jack Dorsey came in, then Dick came in, and you know, they simply couldn't seem to get it together on the inside, couldn't get aligned on the inside. And there's always been a question about whether the Twitter board has been completely aligned, because there are all of these competing voices.
Emily, with your experience with Jack Dorsey, what might he bring to the company that is different than Dick Costolo and might help it?
So one of the things, Jack is the product guy. He's very much in favor of simplicity, and that's always been his push. He also is very supportive of the live feed and keeping live as sort of the cornerstone of Twitter. Twitter's been experimenting with live and delayed tweets as well to try to help surface these tweets that happened maybe 8 hours ago that are really cool, but maybe don't show up in your feed because you only see what was written 5 seconds ago. And Jack Dorsey, as I understand it, certainly cares about keeping that chronological feed alive. But at the same time, there's a question of how do they make that easier for people like my mom, who's a huge Facebook user, to get into Twitter and to understand Twitter without having to do too much work, figuring out who to follow, figuring out when to log on, figuring out usernames. I mean, usernames are very difficult to understand on Twitter. Search still leaves a lot to be desired. It's a very complicated product that does have a lot of potential.
Emily, you know, Wall Street, as you said, has been really rough on Dick Costolo. Do you think, you know, you say Jack's going to come back to be interim, but in terms of a long-term CEO, do you expect that they'll look outside the company, or are there people inside the company that could rise up and likely, be the new leadership?
So there are certainly a lot of people inside the company that have been talked about. For example, Adam Bain has turned Twitter into an incredible business. I mean, you know, the questions about Twitter have a lot more to do with user growth than revenue growth, and that's really been Adam Bain's, you know, project. He has turned Twitter into a revenue engine. Anthony Noto, the CFO, obviously spent a long time at Goldman Sachs. Does he have the sort of product sense, the product vision that Twitter needs? Some people would question whether indeed he does have that. I mean, one of Twitter's main difficulties is that it hasn't had a founder, one of its founders as the CEO. And I was talking to Chris Sacca about this very thing. You know, does Dick Costolo have the respect of the troops because he's not a founder? How much more difficult is it for him to execute on his vision because it's not a founder, and he's not a founder? And Sacca said it is difficult. Founders, CEOs, you know, regardless of whether they're right or wrong, people just defer to them. They're allowed to be weirder. They're allowed to take bigger risks, and Dick never had that. That said, there are names being tossed around here in Silicon Valley. I've heard Kevin Systrom's name, the founder of Instagram. I've heard his name talked around. But at the same time, I've also heard a lot of people saying, but really, who could really do this better? I mean, they can't get Mark Zuckerberg, but it does certainly lend some more, more thought to this idea that maybe Google or Facebook comes in and buys Twitter.
Yeah, you literally stole the next question right out of my mouth. Is that will Twitter inevitably stay an independent company? Where would you place the odds on someone bigger like a Google or a Facebook coming along and taking them out?
I think historically, Jack Dorsey, Evan Williams, they have never wanted to sell this company. Mark Zuckerberg tried to buy this company several years ago, and they did not sell. Chris Sacca just told me this amazing anecdote about being in Hawaii and getting the call and listening on speakerphone as Ev and Jack and Biz went over the terms that Mark Zuckerberg was offering them. And he said at that time, there was never any doubt that they wanted this to be a big independent company. That said, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, for example, has shown no fear of putting down a lot of money and making big bets. And Mark Zuckerberg, at least according to Chris Sacca, would love to own Twitter, would love to improve some of the things that he thinks is wrong with Twitter. Who knows? Twitter would certainly add a lot of value to a company like Google that has never gotten social right, but is it really going to happen? Speculation about a Twitter deal, a big Twitter deal, has been happening for years, and it's never happened.